Okay, we are one column down, two columns still to go. We're going to move from column 1 now to column 2. So what I have here is I have filled in column 1 and the square root of 6 is still there. That's our previous results. And now I have erased column 2 because we're going to find the Q2 hat that's going to go here. And in order to do that, we're going to use these two positions, our column operations. Remember that A2 is going to be made up of projections in these two components. And so in order to figure out what our new column 2 is going to be, we need to figure out what column operations to do. So now on the handout it says next we find Q2 hat by computing Q2, and that's without the hat. Q2 equals A2 minus the projection of A2 in this component, or this direction. And so the first number that we're going to fill in is going to be row 1 of this column. The first entry of this column, this is going to be Q1 hat transpose A2. So if we do that computation, Q1 hat inner product with A2. So we already have those two things. That's where we get this one. So this is the next one to fill in. When we do that, we get 1 over the square root of 6. It's actually this entry, it's directly. It's 1 times the first one and 0 of those. If we do this as a row, times this column. Okay, so we've written the 1 over square root 6 here. Now, before we fill in the rest of these numbers, we're going to do that intermediate computation. Now that we have, this is the Q1 transpose A2, Q1 hat transpose A2, that just shows up in that formula. We store it here. We can compute Q2. It is A2, this column, A2 minus this number, that's the Q1 hat transpose A2, times this column. So it is this column minus that number times this column. That gives you the 5/6 minus 1/3, 1/6. If you don't yet see where those numbers come from, replay what I just said. Replay the video. So work that through and compute those numbers. Okay, pause. Now that you've computed those numbers, notice that every time we write something in these matrices here, there's a square root someplace. There's almost bound to be. There's no way to do this problem without square roots. But as you computed that Q2, the one before we've normalized, the 5/6 minus 1/3, 1/6, do you see how multiplying these together undoes the square roots? It simplifies. If you didn't simplify it, then you did a lot of work that you didn't need to do. So work on, as you do these, realizing that square roots show up in these matrices, but we don't actually have to work with square roots. That is key to success, or at least to being fluent with this process. So now that you've computed the Q2 vector, the last step is to normalize it. So just like we did for column 1, you know what's going to go in this column, at least before we've normalized it. So then go ahead and put here what that norm is. So take Q2 and find its magnitude, and that's what goes here. That magnitude is going to be the square root of 5/6. That's what goes here. Once you find what goes here, factor that out of Q2 to store the final result here.